Hi, hello, how are you? And welcome back. So today I just wanted to ramble. This is a very quick video, probably not very long, about some of the holy texts or epic poems that are found in Hinduism. So, as we know, there is no foundational text that all Hindus must, follow by. However, there are some books, some poems, some stories that are seen as sacred across many different sects and versions of Hinduism. And that is the Mahabharata, the Upanishads, the Ramayana, the Bhagavad Gita, and of course the Vedas, which are probably the most holy across the board, I would say. And within the Vedas, there are four books whose names I'm not going to try to remember because I get them mixed up a lot. But within one of the Vedas, what's really interesting is that there is some songs and chants that are recorded in it, and some are spells and are referred to as such. So, yes, in case you're wondering, magic and what we would call witchcraft here in the West does exist in some form in Hindu mythology and Indian mythology in the Vedic belief system. Um, However, it is not really practiced anymore, like officially, by Hinduism. You know what I mean? But folklore and folkways about magic and charms, specifically a lot of charms, do exist in the history of Hinduism and in India at large, as it does everywhere on the planet. So, if you ever were wondering, like, are there Hindu spells that I can practice or look into when I'm working with my Indian deities? Um, there are. And every single deity has a song or a chant or a symbol associated with them. So, you can definitely work with them in that way as well. Uh, but, anywho, outside of the Vedas, which are phenomenal, but can be really hard to get copies of here in the West in English that aren't revised or edited heavily. Uh, there is the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is really, really long. I think it's like, I'm going to say three times the length of the Holy Bible, which is really, really long. Like, really long. Because the Holy Bible is really long and covers so much history, so much time. The Mahabharata follows predominantly two families that are two royal families and their adventures and battles and intertwiningness. But it does follow two royal families and was supposedly written by a man named Vyasa, who knew those families and worked intimately with them and recorded these at the end of his life. The history of these two families, and well, I should say that he recited it, and Ganesha supposedly is the one who wrote the text actually down by breaking off one of his tusks and writing. That's why Ganesha is usually portrayed with only one tusk, but because he used one as an ink pen, basically. um, but anywho, yeah. So there's that, and then there's the Ramayana, which is a lot of war. A lot of war going on in that with Rama, the avatar slash god Rama, and it's epic, truly an epic battle against the forces of darkness. And then there's the Upanishads, which are also a lot about war. And what else? Oh, the Bhagavad Gita, which is gorgeous and does feature some really, really beautiful kind of, I guess you would say, poems or songs in it that are like some of the verses in the Bhagavad Gita are just gorgeous. So there are so many places for you to jump in, whether you want romance, go check out the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana. If you want like war and destruction and action, it's there. If you want both, they're there. I mean, like truly, particularly the Mahabharata has everything. Everything. It has horror. It has action. It has mystery. It has lots of romance. It has heartwarming family values. Like, it really has everything in it. And I'm not going to summarize them or like go into more detail because this video would be really long. But I just wanted to give you that little insight. And with that said, I wanted to read you some excerpts from a book that we've been enjoying on this channel, The Little Book of Hindu Deities by Sanjay Patel. Wonderful, wonderful primer to a lot of different things Hindu, a lot of things Sanatana Dharma, and very kid friendly, obviously. So, anywho, let's start with the Mahabharata. So, this is what he tells us about the Mahabharata. Here's his artwork, by the way. That is Ganesha, and that is... It's so funny, if I didn't know who this was, I would say that that was Brahma. But this is Vyasa, who is the person who dictated the story to Ganesha, of whom I just spoke. The Mahabharata is incredibly long, nearly 3 times the length of the Bible, so there you go, and tells the story of the early ancestors of ancient India, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, 2 royal Bharata dynasties, and their ongoing conflicts. The author of this enduring work is the divine sage Vyasa, who was a close companion to both families, and so knew their histories intimately. Toward the end of his life, Vyasa decided it was time to dictate the story of the Mahabharata so later generations could benefit from its great lessons. This was a monumental task, as the story spanned hundreds of years of history and mythology. In an effort to find a suitable scribe, Vyasa turned to Brahma for guidance. And of course, Brahma, as we know, as we talked about in our Triple God video, is one of the Trimurti, which are this Triple God group that we venerate. And Brahma is kind of like the heavenly father of the deities. He is the creator. So, without hesitation, Brahma dispatched Ganesha, the god of wisdom and the clear of obstacles, to help with this task. That makes sense. Upon meeting Vyasa, Ganesha pledged his devotion and proclaimed that he could write down the story as fast as Vyasa could recite it. Vyasa agreed, so long as Ganesha wrote without error and understood the meaning of what was being said before writing it. Man. Do I wish that had happened with the Holy Bible? Yes, I do. Ganesha agreed and in turn challenged Vyasa to recite the story without break until it was complete. Vyasa agreed to Ganesha's terms, and together they began their great task under the shade of a banyan tree. Remember, a banyan tree is like so sacred in really ancient Sanatana Dharma. And the banyan tree is considered to be the tree in which Siddhartha, or Shakyamuni Buddha, who is an avatar of Krishna. Oh, Shiva? No, Krishna? Oh, I forget. I think Krishna. No, Vishnu? I always say Krishna. Vishnu. Yeah, he is an avatar of Vishnu, like Krishna. Anywho, I digress. He sat under a banyan tree. So anywho. But before they could begin, they needed something to write with, so Ganesha broke off one of his own tusks to use as a pen. This is why Ganesha is depicted with only one tusk. So there you go. Next, we do have the Bhagavad Gita. And here's the artwork for the Bhagavad Gita. And remember, blue people are always gods, usually, in Hinduism. Well, not usually. They're always gods. So, although the Bhagavad Gita is just a small section of the great epic Mahabharata, it has nearly eclipsed all other texts in Hinduism. Bhagavad Gita means Song of the Lord and refers to the message that Lord Krishna conveyed to Arjuna, the great hero of the Mahabharata. A member of the Pandava family, Arjuna was an acclaimed warrior and leader of the Pandava army. At the stage of the Bhagavad Gita, he faced a moral dilemma. Should he wage war against his own blood relatives, the Kauravas, with whom he spent his childhood days? Or should he risk letting his people down by retreating from combat? On the eve of battle, Arjuna lost his nerve to fight and put the war on hold. Not knowing whom to turn to, he began a conversation with his charioteer, unaware that the driver of the chariot was actually Lord Vishnu. Remember, he is also one of the Trimurti, the really, really big gods. He is the sustainer of energies. Brahma is the creator of energies, and Vishnu is the carrier or enactor of energies, and Shiva is the destructor or transmuter of energies. So Vishnu is very important. and he does have a human vessel called Krishna. So, in disguise. Okay, so he did not know that his charioteer was actually Vishnu in disguise as Krishna. Through their conversation, Krishna convinced Arjuna that he could only concern himself with doing his duty and not with the outcome. To sway Arjuna towards accepting his advice, Krishna revealed his true form. He explained that war would cause the bodies of the slain to be shed off like vessels, and that the souls would endure. Krishna declared that there is no shame in doing your duty. As a member of the, I hope I can say this, as a member of the Kshatriya warrior caste, it was Arjuna's duty to fight. Lord Krishna destroyed Arjuna's nerve to begin, and eventually won the battle. And in doing so, he showed that we must move beyond our egos and merge with divine consciousness to fulfill our duties, our dharma. The great peace activist Mahatma Gandhi read the Bhagavad Gita often when he was imprisoned. It kept him committed to his duty and his cause. The Bhagavad Gita and its message of finding mental peace are as useful today as they were 3,000 years ago. It is actually a really good story. That washes over so much beautiful stuff in that story. You can go on YouTube and watch actual live action plays and movies of it, or cartoons in English. And I encourage you to do that if you don't want to sit and read it. The Bhagavad Gita is very, very epic, and the war sequences in it, the action is so exciting and really fun to watch, with some of the additions that they've made over the years, because the Bhagavad Gita has been made into so many cartoons and movies at this point in India. But there are some really good ones out there, and the action scenes are so cool. And the way they portrayed the gods in human people is like so freaking cool. So I do encourage you to go check out the Bhagavad Gita, because it is a really, really cool story about learning to embrace who you are and learning to, as it said, follow your life's path, regardless of regardless of judgments, whether you think it's a good path or a bad path. Just follow your life's path and see where it takes you, you know? Just be who you are and live. Don't just exist in this life. And that's such a deep message to wrap your head around. And I think that's why the Bhagavad Gita has been so relevant for over 3,000 years. So, next we do have, let's see, I think this is where he ends it. Yeah, we don't go into the Vedas in this, which is a shame. But next and last, he does put the Ramayana. And this is a very fun story as well. Much more a romance, I think, than the other books. So if that's your jam. So the Ramayana is the second of the two great Indian epics, and is a story of devotion, what did I just say, and duty. The celebrated hero Rama, Vishnu's seventh avatar. So we just talked about Vishnu under the guise of Krishna. I mentioned how Vishnu was also actually Buddha. And here we go again with Vishnu having another form called Rama, and that's all the gods' jams. They love coming to Earth every so often in a human vessel, over through time, and it's always a different vessel. And so yeah, his seventh time, he is referred to as Rama. It's really crazy and interesting to see that in Hinduism, whereas like in the Greek mythology, when Zeus comes down and assumes a human form or an animal form, he's still Zeus. He's still called Zeus and recognized as Zeus. That is not necessarily the same here in Hinduism. And the gods learn lessons for themselves by taking on human forms and different avatars, as they're called. And I think that's really cool. It humbles the gods, I think, to us humans and makes them more approachable. But also teaches us lessons about ourselves. And, of course, reinforces the idea of kind of like reincarnation and the idea that you're not going to get all the answers in one life. You're just not. Life is too big and vast and beautiful for us to understand it all. So it's going to take several lifetimes for us to really achieve that state of Brahman, to reunite with Brahman, which is not Brahma, um, but to reunite with that universal energy, with Shakti, or however you see Brahman. I personally do align a little bit more with Shaktiism in Hinduism, which is the idea that Brahman, that universal energy, is like a goddess, is female, but you can interpret it any way you want. Um, Anywho, so I digress. That was a tangent, but yeah. So the Ramayana is about Rama, who is an avatar of the god Vishnu. So the celebrated hero Rama, Vishnu's seventh avatar, lends his name to the story, as it chronicles his journey to save his beloved wife Sita. And Sita in herself is a goddess, and is a manifestation of the universal female energy called Shakti. So, Rama was due to take over his father's kingdom of Ayodhya. Ayodhya. Oof, guys, I really struggle with some of these pronunciations sometimes. And as I said, I've been researching Hinduism since I was 17. And it's still really difficult for my southern Alabama tongue to wrap around. So, anywho. But he was cheated out of his rightful position when his stepmother, Kaikie, exiled him to the forest for 14 years. Rama honored his stepmother's wishes and took leave of his kingdom. Before leaving, he advised his wife to stay in the palace, away from the hardships of forest life. But Sita insisted on accompanying her husband and remained dutifully at his side. It is also important to, I think, point out that Sita is a member of the Tridevi, which are kind of like the female version of the Trimurti. So she's very, very sacred and important as a Hindu figure. So anyway, together with his half-brother Lakshmana, Rama and Sita fled to the woods. But a little while later, when Rama and his brother were hunting, Sita was abducted by Ravana, the king of the demons. As Rama and Lakshmana searched for Sita, they came across the monkey chief Sugriva. I said that very Russian. Sugriva. Sugriva? Sugriva! Anyway. And were promised the help of his monkey army, which was led by the loyal Hanuman. We know Hanuman on this channel. We love Hanuman. We have a statue of Hanuman on our altar. We love Hanuman. After the fleet-footed Hanuman succeeded in locating the imprisoned Sita on the isle of Lanka, which is considered to be Sri Lanka, like here in modern day, it's that island. They set to work building a land bridge from the tip of India to the island. With the help of the monkey army, Rama defeated both Ravana and his army. Sita was finally rescued, and they returned home victorious. So, work hard to do your duty, and if things get tough, it never hurts to ask a monkey for help. So again, the Ramayana is so freaking cool and epic. Like the story, if you actually read it or watch it, again, there are cartoons and movies and comic books and all kinds of things of it out there. It's so epic. And like the newer editions, like live action things that I've seen of them adapting the Ramayana are so freaking cool because they have like CGI monkeys in armor running around with like swords and bows. Even the older ones where it is just a person with monkey prosthetics on. It's so freaking cool to see Hanuman in a live action form like that with his bow and Rama with the infamous bow, like shooting down enemies and like just these huge swarms of demonic tusk people. And then these monkey people that are moving around crazy and fighting. It's very, very epic and exciting. So I do encourage you to check out the Ramayana as well. It is one of the shorter, I would say, books out of all these holy texts, along with the Upanishads. But it's still really long. So anywho, the Ramayana is really cool. And yeah, that was, he didn't even do the Upanishads, which is so crazy that he doesn't cover them in this, but to each their own. Anywho, this turned out to be quite a long video, so I'm going to cap it here. I just wanted to share some little tidbits off the surface about some Hinduism 101, some Sanatan Dharma 101. And yeah, I hope that piqued your interest and showed you how freaking cool Sanatana Dharma can be, which is Hinduism. Also, I'm wondering why my camera keeps going from like blue to like normal, and I'm getting like this grainy like 2004 filter. Anywho, thank you so much for watching, and follow my link tree down below where you can get my merch. You can book a reading with me in tarot, ogum, runes, or oracle. Over on Facebook, you can book a magical guidance session with me. I can draw you an astrology chart. And you can follow me on all other social media at the Nerdy Warlock. So thank you so much, and goodbye.